So I think with strength training, this is for your long-term health. This is for your health now and your health in the future, because we lose muscle with each decade. And particularly as post-menopause, we can lose muscle mass quite quickly. And if we lose that muscle, then we start to lose that ability to do those things, which is why many of us will have a picture in our mind about an older adult who is frail, who can't walk upstairs anymore, who can't perhaps get in and out of a chair easily. So that's what we're trying to avoid and support with strength training, along with our bone health.
Welcome to Late Bloomer Living, the podcast where we're all about shaking up our ideas about what it means to grow older. I'm Yvonne Marchese, your resident age agitator and play instigator. Around here, we believe midlife is the perfect time to play, to reinvent, and bloom like you mean it. Let's go. Hello, my friend. Today I am so excited to welcome Jacqueline Hooton to the podcast. Jacqueline has been a personal trainer for more than 2 decades, and I think it's fair to say she's inspired countless people through her work as a coach, a teacher, and a speaker. And in recent years, she's also built an incredible following on social media with her fun, down-to-earth, age-inclusive approach to fitness. I have to say, I personally love watching her Instagram videos. They keep me inspired to keep my body moving. And her energy and positivity are contagious. And I especially appreciate that she busts myths and stereotypes about aging with both humor and wisdom. And her message resonates deeply with women who want to feel strong and vibrant at any age. And if you don't already know who she is, I am thrilled to be the one to introduce you to her. Her first book, Strong, The Definitive Guide to Aging, is now available in the United States. And I can't wait to dive into a conversation with her about her work, her book, her mission to empower women to age with strength and confidence. Jacqueline, welcome to Late Bloomer Living. Thanks so much for being with me today.
Thank you very much. What a lovely introduction. I'm really happy to be here and talk to you.
Yeah, me too. I have to ask you, your energy on the videos that you post to Instagram, it's so uplifting. And I want to know what fuels you to keep showing up so consistently with such positivity.
Um, well, I think that's just me, to be honest. I don't think I'm just thinking about that. What actually, that's just me in day-to-day life, I think. I never really think a lot about how I'm coming across, or I'm just being me. So hopefully, when people meet me in real life, or I go and speak at an event, what they get is what they've seen all the way along. So yeah, I think it's just me. The quick answer to that.
I can see that already. One of the other things that I really wanted to talk to you about is how you bust myths and stereotypes about aging with humor.
I think that's so important, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
I think I was probably starting to become aware of ageism in society here in the UK, certainly in my 40s. And I think the older we get, perhaps we get more and more exposed to ageism and myths about age. And you kind of go like, hold on a minute, I'm no different really than I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. And I just feel that conversation, that pressure around age and people's stereotypes and ideas about age, it builds up really. The noise gets louder and louder the older we get. Certainly has been my experience as a woman. What started off as a trickle has ended up as a deluge by the time you're in your 60s. And so I think it's really important to tackle that, because we still have worth, we still have value, we've got a lot still to give, a lot of wisdom to share as well, and we potentially can live for quite a long time now. So my whole remit is about living better, living longer but well, increasing our health span. And it's so important that we tackle ageist stereotypes within that, because if we feel everything is inevitable, downhill is in inevitability, whatever our sort of those stereotypical ideas are about aging, we won't take action. And that's the real important thing, is because we need to take action to age better.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I have personal experience of that. In
Mm,
my 40s were that was me. I and
yeah.
I and I didn't even realize it. I didn't realize that my internalized ageism
Mm,
is what was holding me back from taking
mm,
action on things that I wanted in my life.
yeah. Yeah.
And it was a lot of trash talk about myself as I would look in the mirror and be like, who is that person looking back at me that I don't recognize?
Yeah. And this, I'm really pleased you've mentioned internalized ageism, because I think that there's so much ageism in society that we often don't recognize it for what it is. I can divide opinions online sometimes, I know that. And it's easy to not be concerned about some of the really silly messages and comments you get. But when it's people of a similar age group, you very quickly become aware of who has internalized ageism, women who are being held back by their own internalized ageism. And so I take a dive into that with my book, actually, talking about the different types of ageism. And even now, it's not that I'm perfect by any means. There are many times when I need to catch myself and go, hold on. I'll give you an example. Last year or a couple of years ago, I went to a silent disco with my daughter. This is where you wear the headphones. I don't know if you've
Right.
got that in the US.
Everybody's got
Yes.
their own music going, right?
Exactly. So you've got headphones on. There are three different disc jockeys. You can tune in to which music channel you think you would like. This is actually held in a cathedral here, so it's a fantastic venue. But before we went, I was like, oh, I don't know. Am I going to be a bit old for that? And so, as I said, in the event, it was fantastic. There were plenty of people in my age group as well. But there was that moment when I thought, oh, am I going to be too old? So I think we can all have ideas about what is and isn't appropriate at different ages, or what we should or shouldn't do. And I'm no different than anybody else, but it's catching ourselves and going like, why do I believe that? Where's that come from? Is it true? And is it holding me back from doing something that I might really enjoy or I might really benefit from? Same way, like if you were going to join a CrossFit class, for example, if you'd never tried CrossFit and you thought, well, that's for younger people, you might never open yourself up to a different exercise experience. So I think it cuts across lots of different things in life where we might need to check ourselves and go, oh, hold on, where do I get that idea from?
I think becoming aware of it is the first step to having some agency. And it's the
Yeah.
reason this podcast exists. Because when I started taking better care of myself as I was approaching 50, and I started feeling better because I was taking care of myself better. And I
Mm,
thought, wow, if I've got another 20 or 30 years ahead of me, maybe, and if I can stay healthy and feel good, then what's limiting me? I can do anything. And that
mm,
was the aha moment of,
mm,
oh, I've been telling myself it's all over and it's
mm,
too
mm.
late. And that was where the idea for the podcast eventually came from, because I thought there's got to be other people who don't even know that they're doing this to themselves.
It's really interesting you say opening your eyes to that, because there was a lady in the UK, either the oldest woman in the world or certainly the oldest woman in the UK, like 116.
Wow.
And so I've been thinking, okay, I've now extended how long I think I could live for, and therefore what I need to do to stay active and healthy as much as possible. And I'd kind of capped that at 100. Now we're seeing women living beyond 100, and they're not all in nursing homes. They're not all needing lots of extra care. They're living well. And I'm going like, oh, maybe maybe I've cut that off a bit short. I've talked to 100. Maybe I need to raise my expectations now and live accordingly, instead of thinking, well, these bits of my body have only got to last another 20 or 30 years. Now I'm thinking, hold on, I could live another 40 years, another 50 years,
Yeah.
if I live as
And
long
what
as
are we
that.
going to do with that time, right? That's like a
Ex
lifetime for some people.
Exactly.
But
And so if we're getting sort of aches and pains, or we think, oh, that's getting a bit harder, we need to do something about that when we feel it. We need to not go like, oh, well, I'm in my 60s now. This is what happens. We need to go, well, hold on.
Because that then becomes true, right?
Exactly. So it's really interesting, this idea of challenging where have those thoughts come from. And as I said, just recently, it's made me challenge, like, why did I put the cap on 100? Maybe I need to rethink that.
You know, it makes me think of some of the times in your reels where you've addressed troll comments
Mm,
about whether or not you should be wearing short shorts,
mm,
about your hair color, about going
mm.
gray, about dancing. Because I love your dance videos. I think they're fun. I love that you dance with
Well,
your daughter.
I'm not necessarily the best answer, but obviously it's
But
movement, it's
that's
fun,
why I
it's
love it. I'm not a dancer either, and a lot of times I'll see people trying to shame somebody like you
mm,
for
mm,
showing up
mm.
and doing something that is outside of their idea of what's age appropriate.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the internalized ageism. That's when I want them to catch
Yes.
themselves and go, oh, well, if I'm limiting her, how am I limiting myself?
Exactly. And it does make you wonder about people who feel like what these people's their relationship with their own older relatives, for example. Some of the comments you feel like, is this how you would talk to your own grandparents? Or if it's
Right.
people of a similar age, it's like, gosh, you are really restricting yourself there. I think age shaming is a big thing, isn't it? But that, I think you always have to recognize that for what it is. It's about control. And we're done with being controlled, aren't we? If we're women, if we've got to our 50s, 60s, or older as women, we are so done with being controlled. We're out of control at this point. If you're trying to restrict us, modify us, get us to dance to somebody else's tune, move on.
Good luck with that, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is why we can laugh about it, isn't it? Because we've had those years. I think back to the 70s, some of the work situations I was in, early 80s, we've all had those Me Too moments. We've had so many issues, perhaps in terms of equality and sexism at work and misogyny and all the rest of it. I think that's also why there's a whole generation of women now, our age group, who are tackling ageism, because we've had to tackle a lot of other things, and we're changing it for future generations as well, I would hope.
Yeah. I want to see women cheering each other on instead of tearing each other down. And that goes
Exactly.
with age, that goes with everything. And if somebody wants to color their hair, color your hair or get the work done if you want to get work done. I don't care. Go live your best life.
I feel exactly the same. So I think people often assume if you've let your hair go grey, if you've stopped having it coloured, that you must be anti other women having their hair coloured. And I'm not at all. I think this is the whole point, isn't it? It's about freedom of choice. It's about supporting women with their own choices. We don't need to control what other women do. We need to make the choices that are right for us. The only thing I'm interested in pushing the agenda on is that people understand how they can influence their future health trajectory by taking action, by being physically active.
I love that about what you're doing. And I have a question for you. So you've been doing this work for a long time. At
Mm.
what point did you decide to turn a camera on and post videos?
To be honest, I've been doing it for a long time. So, it was on other platforms, it was on, Facebook, whatever. So and YouTube. So as soon as we had sort of cameras that could record and upload to social media, I've been doing
So
it.
you were an early adopter. Okay, okay.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess of all those different platforms, the one that's stood out for me as most successful and I've been most consistent on has been Instagram.
Are there any standout comments that you've gotten from people on Instagram that inspire you to keep doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I think I get regular comments from people. I mean, for a start, lots of women tell me they only started strength training because they've seen the information that I've shared about strength training, way before the noise around strength training has become louder in the
Mhm.
last 3, 4, maybe 5 years. But I've been talking about strength training ever since I became a personal trainer, and I've been strength training myself for 30 years. But it's very rewarding when women are telling me they've been picking up weights, they've been doing strength training. Some of them tell me they've been doing it several years now because I originally showed them that women could do it and explained why it was so valuable for our health.
You go into that a little bit right now to talk
Yeah,
about
sure.
what the benefits are of strength training?
Yeah. So I think women of my generation may have grown up more with aerobics and cardiovascular training, and it was all about aesthetics. It was about aerobics, so you could be lean and thin and a dress size zero or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think consequently, lots of women have developed a poor relationship with exercise because they've been in a constant battle with their body and they haven't necessarily met that aesthetic that they thought was the desirable aesthetic or what was being sold to them. So I think with strength training, it's been great to explain to women that, you know, this is for your long-term health. This is for your health now and your health in the future. Let's put aesthetics to one side for a moment. You will get aesthetic benefits from it as well, most likely. But we're primarily doing any kind of fitness for our health. And when it comes to strength training, you're supporting your muscular strength and endurance and the retention of lean muscle, because we lose muscle with each decade. And particularly as post-menopause, we can lose muscle mass quite quickly. And muscle, whether you feel like you can see your muscles or not, we've all got muscles, but they enable us to do day-to-day activities like walking up a flight of stairs, like reaching up into an overhead locker, or if you're traveling on a plane, you know, putting your carry-on bags in the overhead locker,
Yeah.
getting in and out of a bath if you have baths, um, sitting up, standing back, sitting down, standing back up again, getting on and off public transport. And basically every function you can do in your day-to-day life, it relies on your joints and your muscles and your connective tissues, your tendons, all to be working properly so that you can do all the way, you can move in all the ways that your body is designed to move. And if we lose that muscle, then we start to lose that ability to do those things, which is why we sometimes associate older adults, and I say this cautiously because we're not talking all older adults, but many of us will have a picture in our mind about an older adult who is frail, who can't walk upstairs anymore, who can't perhaps get in and out of a chair easily, who perhaps needs some assistance for some activities. So that's what we're trying to avoid and support with strength training, along with our bone health. So bone is living tissue. And again, post-menopause, well, actually from our 30s onwards, we're losing bone density. So it kind of peak bone density is around about the end of our 20s, early 30s. So it builds up to a peak and then it's tailing off year by year, decade by decade. And that can lead to mean our bones become more fragile, and that increases our risk of breakage and developing conditions like osteoporosis. Many problems. Having just, well, a year ago, I fractured my own wrist in an accident. Having had a broken bone, that was the first broken bone I've ever had. None of us want to have a broken bone in our 60s, 70s, or 80s. It's very painful. It takes a long time to recover from. It massively impacts your life whilst you're going through that. So we really want to try and avoid that. So strength training helps strengthen our bones.
I've heard this before. How does
Mm.
strength training help with bone density and
Because it helps with the bone remodeling, because when you're lifting up a weight, the muscle is pulling on the bone, and that sends messages to the bone to remodel, make itself strong. So if it's not getting that stimulation, it's not the only mechanism, because we also know impact and weight bearing exercise supports bone health. So when we think about impact, that could be jumping up and down.
Mhm.
It can be walking, but we actually want a bit more impact than that. It could be jump rope, running, but we need a bit of impact because,
Okay.
again, the shock of that impact on the bones. So bone remodeling is going on throughout our lives, which is how when we're a child, you know, our bones are getting longer and bigger. Bone remodeling is what happened when I fractured my wrist. So in order for the wrist to repair, yes, I had surgery, a metal plate to hold the bones in place, but
Mhm.
then it was the remodeling process where the bones start to mold together again and build themselves and build stronger again. So that's going on throughout our life, but that bone loss and bone remodeling, as you get older, that process is much slower. It's not quite so efficient. So this is why strength training combined with impact activities supports the healthier bones. So
Gotcha.
it's not that, you know, we can still, our bone density will still be not at the level that we are in our 30s, but it will be much better than if we haven't done anything at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
I've
another
also
advantage with
heard
strength.
I've also heard that strength training can help with metabolism. Like if you strength train, that you get like hours of a boost in metabolism. Am I on target with that? Am I even saying that right?
Yeah, so whereas we think cardiovascular training, we'll think, oh, we're burning calories whilst we're doing that, which is true.
Hmm.
With strength training, your energy requirement is increased for up to 48 hours after strength training. So yes, you've got that help with, yeah. We think about weight maintenance, for example, it's helpful from that point of view. And also, your muscles are really important from metabolic health as well. So you want muscles because that's going to help in terms of how you use energy stores as
Yeah,
well.
I think when we were growing up, everybody was like, "Oh no, weight training you'll get big and masculine looking, right?" And it's kind of cool to see this. I'm glad that there's a lot of noise around weight training
Mm,
because I'm trying to get myself to do more of it.
yeah, yeah.
So it's like constant reminders.
So it's really interesting, this idea. I mean, gosh, I wish it was that easy to build muscle because, I've been strength training for 30 years and I lift heavy, heavy weights. And most people will look at me and not think, gosh, she can tell she lifts heavy weight. I mean, very annoyingly, I wish people
Yeah,
could
you
look at me.
don't look like a weightlifter at all.
No, no,
No.
no. And I've been a competitive bodybuilder as well, but I'm a typical ectomorph, which is a lean person. And for me to build muscle is very challenging. Then for women, we've got 10 times less testosterone than men. So it's much harder for us to build muscle that you can see, if you like. And also, I also want to just come in and challenge that, like, you're going to look masculine, because like muscles aren't just for men, you know?
Right?
So they're not just for men.
Yeah, there's so many
This
like
idea that you
things
need
that
to
we
look,
hear in conversation,
I
right?
know,
And
it's
we
like,
just absorb, it's like the ideas about aging, it's the
yeah,
ideas about
yeah,
masculinity and femininity.
yeah, exactly. I can remember in the UK, we've got a famous washing up liquid, and the whole byline was that hands that do dishes can feel soft as your face. And typical 70s adverts always showed a woman doing the washing up for a start, never a man in the picture. And always she had to have very feminine hands. And I'm like, okay, if you do a lot of strength training and you've ditched the gloves because you really want to work on your grip strength with your strength training, is another great advantage because we want good grip strength. Your hands are probably going to show the signs. Doesn't matter how much hand cream you use, you're going to build up some calluses there. They're actually going to help you. And over the years, I've heard, oh, but your hands aren't very feminine. I'm going to define feminine. Define feminine.
Yeah.
What says my hands have to look a certain way?
I think if we all can just start questioning all of our assumptions,
Literally everything. Question everything.
question everything, get
Start
curious.
again. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Be curious
Yeah.
and go and do a lot of that. Like, why do I think that? Where's that come from? Has it been upbringing? Is it passed through the generations? Because we've got a generational thing here. Families, your culture, your sort of community. Is it community pressure? Obviously, lots of things are things to hold society in check, aren't they? We can't have people completely lawless and like, oh, I'm not listening to anybody's rules. So there is a line there, isn't there? But there's certainly a lot of things for us women in midlife to be thinking and challenging and going like, is that serving me now as a woman? Is that serving my health, my well-being, my psychological well-being, or am I being hemmed in by all these ideas of how I should be?
Ah, I'm so glad you said that. Yes. Yes to that. So what's it been like to write a book at this point? And what was the inspiration for that?
Nightmarish. Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's such a big undertaking writing a book. Any author out there listening to me will go, yes, it is. And especially a non-fiction book, because there's a lot of research in my book as well. And there are pages of research references at the back. But it's a huge undertaking and not one that I took lightly. And I really wanted it to be a roadmap for women. I wanted it to be a very practical guide. So it is very practical. There's lots of exercise in there, there's training programs. But before we get to that bit, I wanted to kind of explore, what is fitness for a start? When people say, I think I need to get fit. What do we mean by that? We look at the components of fitness, which are health and skills related. I haven't made these up, by the way. These are kind of internationally recognized as components of fitness. So that includes cardiovascular health, strength and conditioning, agility, balance, coordination, and so on. So I go through and look at all of those. I talk about age and our attitudes to age because it's really quite relevant to whether we're going to take action or not. And I've also included nutrition guidelines in there as well. So I wanted it to be a book that even if you're a complete beginner and you don't want to go into a gym, you want to train at home, you've got everything there to get started with it. But also something to refer to. And every time you think, oh, I don't know if I can be bothered, you'll have got enough information about what the benefits are and how this is going to support your health span as opposed to your lifespan, health span, but I'll explain that in a moment, that you'll go like, oh, I don't know. Oh, but on the other hand, Jacqueline says if I don't do that, it's all going to go wrong. So I'm going to do it anyway. So I want there to be enough there because I think so many people think, oh, I just need to be really motivated. Actually, you don't. What you need is a habit. You need to form habits. And I talk about how we can kind of habit stack as well and make that a lifelong commitment then. But yes, I've just wanted to come back to the difference between health span and lifespan. So the whole point of my book is not about living longer, and this is the whole thing about active aging. When we're physically active, lots of people will say, well, I'd like to live longer, but most of us don't want to live longer if we're in poor health.
You're spot on. If I am going to hang out for a long time here on this earth, I do want to be able to do the things that I want to do,
Yeah,
if at
yeah.
all possible, you know.
Exactly. And so this is why it's really important we understand the difference between health span and lifespan. So lifespan is very clear. You whatever age you live until, that is your lifespan. So if you pass away at 88, that was your lifespan. Health span is a harder thing to, so in the UK, we judge health span, and it's done by asking people, when did you start to feel like things were going wrong for you in your health? And so the average health span here for women, for example, is 64 health span, but lifespan is 84. So you've got women who are in their 60s are starting to notice health related issues. And so it's a subjective measure, in other words, because people are being asked. So it's harder to define. But what we do know from all the research on this is that most people in the UK anyway, and this is reflected around the world really, will spend the last 15 to 20 years of their life in poor and deteriorating health. So that's when we're thinking about health span. Exactly. So what we're trying to do, and what I'm trying to do with my book in terms of educating people, is to decrease that amount of time that you spend in poor and deteriorating health. So in other words, we increase our health span because for many people, it will be possible to just live the last 4 to 5 years of their life in poorer and deteriorating health. That's a possibility for many people, but not if we don't take action.
Yeah.
So that's the whole point, is being physically active. Now, that's not to say we might not need to modify things. We might need to change what we're doing. For example, I've got osteoarthritis in my knees. So I need to modify what I do, but I've got osteoarthritis in my knees. Therefore, I'm just going to sit on a couch because if I do anything, it hurts.
Right. Yeah.
Because regardless of what we're working around, it's possible to work around almost everything. And I think the Paralympic athletes show us that, don't they?
Yes.
You take people with very different disabilities, and we can see like, okay, right, well, I don't really have an excuse, do I? It's osteoarthritis in my knees, but that's nothing in comparison to what some people are dealing with.
Yeah.
So we can need those role models as well to make us question why we think our particular condition might mean that we can't be physically active. So it's not that we might be able to do everything that we could do as a 20-year-old, but we certainly need to be doing the things to support our cardiovascular health, our strength and conditioning, our mobility, our flexibility, our agility. We need to be incorporating all those things to make sure we're maintaining those at as good a level as we can.
I love it. I keep what's rolling around in my head right now is the idea that what an opportunity midlife is to take charge now if you're in your 40s or your 50s or maybe even your 60s, that this is like a time to change habits, to start taking action that can serve you when you're 80, 90 years old. But I do have a question for you. Is it ever too late? Let's say somebody's in their 70s and they're feeling like, oh, well, it's all over now. Is it too late? Or can somebody take action at that
No,
point?
absolutely. It's never too late. There's plenty of research again to support and show that even people in their 80s have made strength gains when they've started a strength training program, a structured, guided strength training program, have improved things like their leg strength. And certainly from a cardiovascular health point of view, we know that if you're starting cardiovascular exercise, you can support your heart health, your cardiovascular system. If you've never done any stretching and mobility work, actually you can improve your flexibility and mobility work. So no, it's never too late. Obviously there may be some, we can't reverse some conditions. If you've developed a particular condition, that's not going to necessarily reverse it or change it, but it certainly will help you work around it and live the best life that you can. I always say it's about being the healthiest version of you. So it's not about going like, well, I want to be at the pinnacle of best health. Because that's not very realistic for most people. Many of us will develop conditions and issues as we go along, particularly if we haven't come to fitness and exercise until later in life. But it's about being the healthiest version of you. It's the version of you that's better than the version of you that didn't take action for 10 years. Do you
I
know what I
love
mean?
that.
So it's
Yes,
that,
yes. And it takes away the comparison factor too of comparing
yes,
yourself to somebody
yeah,
else
it
and their level of
definitely.
fitness when they've had an entirely
A
different
very different,
life.
exactly, a very different life story. And, accidents can happen to any of us. Um, there may be a period where people are going through grief and they're unable to exercise. There's so many different reasons why people might step away from exercise, may not have been able to engage in exercise, but we can come back to it or start at any point and start to enjoy the benefits of that, both physically and psychologically. So it's so, so important. It's really important that people do. And I think it's very interesting what you're saying, there's an opportunity around midlife. I think there are various points in our lives when it can be a catalyst for change. And I think, it's for some people, it may be leaving university, for example. That might be the point at which they've been quite sedentary because they've been studying and they might decide, they're going to be active at that point. Or it might be someone's getting ready and they're going to get married and they suddenly feel like, oh, I want to look my best on my wedding day.
Yeah.
Or someone's preparing for pregnancy and they're thinking like, okay, I want to be in the best health for this, but to get pregnant and then to have a baby. But I think menopause, perimenopause, is another one of those times where it can be a catalyst for change, because as women we can be very aware then of things that are going on in our bodies, with our bodies, and we may be experiencing many symptoms. We may have nowadays be hearing a lot more about some of the health implications around that, and it's often a really good point at which to go, okay, well, I need to get serious now about what can I do to support my health now. So I think it's a really good time for many women to go, like, even if you've never done anything before, it's a really good time and quite often a catalyst for helping manage symptoms, for example, and also addressing some of those health related concerns that can be triggered around midlife and menopause.
Yeah. So I have one last question for you before I let you go. The title of your book, Strong, it feels to me like it's about so much more than physical strength. And I don't know if I'm right about that, but how do you define strong in the context of active aging?
Um, well, it's an interesting question, really. I think, that I think we have a deep, a sort of resource of strength by the time we've reached our 40s, 50s, 60s. So it's calling on that within all of us. It's calling for that to embrace that strength we have. Many of us have faced lots of difficulties by the time we've reached our 50s, 60s. We've weathered a lot of storms. I quite often talk to sort of my younger children about this. We know we can get through tough times. We've been through tough times, so we know we can get through tough times. You don't always have that experience in your 20s, do you?
Oh, isn't
the
that the
first the
truth?
first tough time that you don't really have the experience to know you'll get through that and things will get better again. It's part of that roller coaster. So I think there are many things around that title, but the idea of strong, Strong, the definitive guide to active aging, is about these are all the things we can do to live our best life, to be strong physically, mentally, emotionally, and the whole package basically.
Thank you so much for being with me today. And people can find your book on Amazon, I'm guessing, and anywhere else you can get books,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. All your good booksellers.
Fantastic. I will make sure to put links in the show notes so that people can come and find you in all the places that they might find.
Yeah, and come and find me on Instagram. Come and join in the fun, because I
Yes.
share, quick. I do lots of sort of reminders about what we can do, but also we didn't touch on sort of injury rehabilitation or anything like that. But there are very, very often things that we'll be dealing with in midlife. So I often touch on things like knee pain and shoulder pain, and just but trying to make exercise accessible and inclusive for people as well, so you don't feel like, oh my gosh, it's all very high powered. Something for everyone, really.
That's exactly why I keep you on my feed, because it does feel accessible. You don't make it feel super complicated at all. You make it feel like this is within reach.
And I'm always like, if we can see it, we can be it. So we
Yes.
need to show up in midlife online, whether we're, an author, a painter, a gymnast, or myself as a personal trainer doing exercise myself. We need to see that, because then we go like, oh, maybe I can do that as well then. And I think that's also really important, to model that for people and be there. And so that, so you're not in your 20s, you might not resonate or relate to the people in their 20s showing exercise online. But when you see people in their 60s and 70s, 50s, 60s, you might go like, oh, okay, all right. So it's not just for the younger people then.
Exactly. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. Thank you again.
You're very welcome, Yvonne. It's been so lovely to talk to you.
Thanks so much for listening today. I hope this conversation with Jacqueline Hooton reminded you that it's never too late to get stronger physically, mentally, emotionally. Midlife isn't the beginning of the end. It's the perfect time to take charge of your health and rewrite what's possible. And you heard it from Jacqueline herself. It's literally never too late. If Jacqueline's words inspired you, head on over to Instagram and give her a follow. You can find her at Her Garden Gym, and grab a copy of her book, Strong, the Definitive Guide to Active Aging. You can find that wherever books are sold, and I will put some links for you where you can go find her in the show notes as well. Just go to latebloomerliving.com/podcast and look for episode 241. And if you're ready to start, keep it simple. Pick up a pair of light weights or take a short walk today. Just commit to moving your body every day. Tiny steps can spark powerful change. I know, I've been there. Until next time, my friend, bloom like you mean it.